Commission is conducting this informational meeting with the specific purpose of providing potentially affected landowners with essential background information on the proposed project and route, and to describe your legal rights before the pipeline company can start negotiations. You will also be provided with information on actions you may take in order to participate in the process. It is approximately 6 p.m. August 26, 2024 in Corning, Iowa. The purpose of this meeting is to provide information regarding SCS Carbon Transport's proposal to construct 7.8 miles of hazardous liquid pipeline in Adams County, which is part of an overall 31.9. Testing? Are you good? Okay. 31.9 mile lateral. The IUC, under statutory direction, has established procedures which SCS Carbon must follow to obtain a permit for construction, operation, and maintenance of a hazardous liquid pipeline. This meeting is the first step in the permit process as required by Iowa Code Chapter 479B. One of my responsibilities is to verify that SCS Carbon has met with all statutory and administrative rule requirements. At the end of today's presentation, we will make a declaration as to whether or not SCS Carbon has complied with Iowa law. Today's agenda is identical to page 1 of your handout and to the slide. The agenda includes a description of the Iowa Utilities Commission, information about the Office of Consumer Advocate, a summary of the permit process and the legal rights of landowners, information about the project which will be presented by the company, and then a question and answer session at the end. During the question and answer period, you may ask SCS Carbon representatives about the project. You may ask us about IUC's procedures. This informational meeting is a prerequisite to the negotiation process. In addition to the agenda, other items included in your handout are the IUC's informational meeting presentation, which provides you with information about the process and procedures, a statement of property owner's rights, which is the green sheet in the handout. This is an important document prepared by the Iowa Attorney General's Office, and it is to inform you of your rights. There's also in your packet information on how to file written comments, objections, or letters of support. Iowa Code Chapter 479B, which is Iowa's law regarding hazardous liquid pipelines. IUC Administrative Rule Chapter 9 regarding the restoration of agricultural lands, and also frequently asked questions about eminent domain. The Iowa Utilities Commission is an independent, quasi-judicial regulatory body. It consists of 3 commissioners. They serve staggered 6-year terms. No more than 2 may be from the same political party. They are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. Our current commissioners are Chair Eric Hillen, Commissioner Joshua Burns, and Commissioner Sarah Marks. While the IUC primarily regulates the rates, safety, and services of utility companies, it is also charged with issuing permits for various types of infrastructure projects, such as this one. IUC's decisions are based on evidence presented to the IUC and on the law, and IUC's actions may also be reviewed by the courts. The Office of Consumer Advocate is a division of the Iowa Department of Justice. The OCA represents the general interests of consumers and the public in all matters brought before the IUC. For more information, see the OCA sheet in your informational handout. Also, we have the Consumer Advocate, Landy Zeman, with us tonight. You can ask him questions about his office's role at the conclusion of the meeting tonight. Now I will go over the hazardous liquid pipeline permit process and law, including the legal rights of landowners. A permit is a grant of authority by the IUC to build, operate, and maintain a pipeline. Information on the permit process and law, as well as your legal rights, is included in your informational handout. The first step in the permit process is for the company to request informational meetings, such as this one, in the counties where the pipeline is proposed to be located. A requirement for notification of the informational meeting is that SCS Carbon identify the corridor within which the company wishes to place the pipeline. Notice is provided to all owners within the corridor. Therefore, in many cases, a landowner may have received notice to attend today's informational meeting because their property is within the corridor, but not along the proposed route. SCS Carbon cannot begin to negotiate with landowners until the informational meeting for the county has been completed. The route may change within the proposed corridor, and I recommend that you follow the proceedings in this docket. within the IUC's electronic filing system for updates to this project. The company cannot file its petition for permit with the IUC until at least 30 days after the information meetings have been held. After the petition is filed, the IUC will set a scheduling conference that establishes a schedule for intervention by parties, which could include landowners, and for testimony and a hearing date. Notice of the hearing will be published for 2 consecutive weeks in each affected county. At the hearing, the IUC will hear evidence in favor of or opposing the project. Any affected landowner may file comments either for or against the proposed pipeline as part of IUC's review process. Phone calls or verbal communications will not be considered a part of the official record. Only written comments will be considered a part of the official record. If you do file comments, please reference the docket number identified in your informational handout. That docket number is HLP-2024-0006. That helps us know what project you are referring to. This docket number also can be found on the front page of your informational handout. Comments may be filed at any time in the docket. Information on how to file a comment is the yellow sheet in your informational handout. The company is allowed to conduct a survey of property in order to determine direction and depth of the proposed hazardous liquid pipeline pursuant to Iowa Code 479B.15. The company cannot contact landowners for survey permission until after the conclusion of the informational meeting. Involuntary survey permission is not granted. The company may conduct the survey after sending 10-day notice via restricted certified mail. An easement agreement is a legal agreement that allows one person to use another person's property in certain specified ways. An easement provides rights to a company to locate its property on someone else's private property. It does not transfer ownership of the property. Landowners may contact an attorney or receive assistance from family members or friends during negotiation of the easement terms. Landowners may negotiate the use of their land or specify their desire for placement of facilities on their land as they negotiate. Landowners have the right to ask for the pipeline to be moved to a different location. An easement may be either voluntarily granted or obtained for the use of eminent domain. After this informational meeting, the Hazardous Liquid Pipeline Company will have parcel-specific maps available for you to look at detailing the proposed hazardous liquid pipeline location on your potentially impacted parcels. The right of eminent domain may only be granted by the IUC after a public hearing. Notice of the IUC hearing will be sent by the company through certified mail to landowners and parties in possession of property for which eminent domain is requested. If the IUC grants eminent domain, the company may obtain easements after the condemnation proceeding. The County Compensation Commission under Iowa Code Chapter 6B determines just compensation for property rights taken by eminent domain. So this amount is not determined by the IUC, but by the County Compensation Commission. FAQs about eminent domain are located in your informational handout. Going back to that green sheet again, included in your informational handout is a green sheet that has the statement of property owners' rights put together by the Iowa Attorney General's office. There are 12 property rights included in Chapter 34 of the Attorney General's Administrative Rules. These rights apply to owners of record who may have property acquired by condemnation and come from Iowa Code Chapter 6A, 6B, and 316. If you have a pen with you, please circle the following numbers on that green sheet. The numbers are 1, 5, 6, and 10. Again, they are 1, 5, 6, and 10. If an easement on a property is condemned, right number 1 would apply, and rights 5, 6, and 10 could apply. These rights address procedures and condemnation taken by the court-appointed Compensation Commission. Are we good? Testing. These rights address procedures and condemnation taken by the court-appointed Compensation Commission in determining the amount to be paid to the landowner. Please review and read this sheet as it is very important because it explains your legal rights. The IUC has adopted rules regarding the restoration of agricultural land during and after pipeline construction. and 199 Iowa Administrative Code, Chapter 9. A copy of Chapter 9 is included in your informational handout. The company will be required to submit a land restoration plan when it files its petition. The plan must comply with the requirements in Chapter 9. Landowners will be able to review the plan in the IUC's filing system and file comments regarding the plan. As part of the decision in this case, the IUC may approve or require modifications to the land restoration plan. The IUC may impose additional land restoration requirements based on the specific details of the project. Landowners can negotiate their own restoration agreements with the company, but the terms must be consistent with the IUC's rules and be in writing. Landowners' comments regarding land restoration must be filed using the IUC's comment form. The County Board of Supervisors will appoint a county inspector to inspect the construction of the pipeline for compliance with the approved restoration plan or with any negotiated restoration agreements. The company is required to provide the name of the county inspector to all affected landowners prior to commencement of construction. The county inspector may temporarily halt construction if the company is not in compliance with the land restoration plan. If the company continues to violate the land restoration plan, the County Board of Supervisors may petition the IUC for corrective action and civil penalties. The company is required to pay for actual property damage caused by the construction or maintenance of the proposed hazardous liquid pipeline. Damages are considered different and separate from easement payments. The company is required to designate a person to receive inquiries or damage claims from landowners. Damage claims are received and decided by a county compensation commission after the County Board of Supervisors has declared construction to be complete. The company may include a provision in the easement agreement addressing damage settlement procedures. Hazardous liquid pipelines are inspected by the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA for short. For more information about PHMSA and its inspection procedures, you can visit phmsa.dot.gov. Before I turn the microphone over to SCS Carbon personnel, I will explain what will take place next. While SCS Carbon makes its presentation, we will follow the IUC's checklist to determine whether the presentation made by the company has provided you, the landowner, or interested party with the information you would require to make an informed decision about the project. The checklist I am using is based upon both Iowa statute and IUC administrative rules governing hazardous liquid pipelines in Iowa. If there are unanswered questions or areas where I believe additional information is required, I will require SCS Carbon to answer those questions. If SCS Carbon is unable to answer the questions here, I will require the company to file the information in the IUC's electronic filing system under the docket number previously identified. Again, that is HLP 2024-0006. When I have determined that SCS Carbon has answered all of our questions, we will then take questions about the project from the audience. SCS Carbon will now introduce its personnel and make its presentation. Again, please hold your questions about the project until the completion of their presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to the IUC for being here, and thank you for all of you for coming this evening. Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Jake Kessler, and I serve as the Vice President of Government Affairs. I've been with Summit Carbon for a little over 3 years. Joining me today is Kylie Lang, who's our Iowa Project Manager, J.D. Myers, who's our Ag Relations Manager, and Dave Dahm, who's our Senior Director of HSSE, which stands for Health, Safety, Security, and Environment. We're here today to introduce you to the project and answer your questions. There are land agents and other staff members in the back of the room to answer your questions as well following the presentation. So here's the agenda that we'll go through today. We have the project impact, project details, landowner compensation, and protections, as well as safety. This project is about opening access to new markets for biofuels and farmers. These are markets for low carbon products, and that's what Summit Carbon Solutions enables. So Summit Carbon Solutions is a proposed carbon capture, transport, and sequestration company. We will get much more into the details later, but at a very high level, we've partnered with 57 ethanol plants, including Poet Corning here locally. And those 57 plants are spread across 5 states to capture the CO2 emissions from ethanol plants that is currently being emitted into the atmosphere. We will dehydrate and compress the CO2 and move it through roughly a 2,500 mile gathering system and take it to North Dakota, where it will be permanently sequestered. The CO2 arrives to one of our 3 Class 6 injection sites in North Dakota, where it is safely and permanently stored about a mile below ground in a porous rock formation, which we call cap rock. That's why we need a pipeline system, because we do not have the appropriate subsurface geology here in Iowa, so we have to go where that geology exists. Why is this project needed? And this is from the Comstock report a few weeks ago. We thought it would be important to include. Trendline corn yields continue to climb, and demand has been slower to develop. In the big picture, ethanol made corn profitable until we overproduced. The next potential demand windfall will come from CO2 sequestered low carbon ethanol becoming SAF feedstock. That takes the CO2 pipelines being built. So where is the CO2 coming from? As I mentioned before, so 3 pounds of corn creates 1 pound of ethanol, 1 pound of DDGs, but it also creates 1 pound of CO2, which currently goes into the atmosphere and isn't monetized. That's where the opportunity comes on this project. So to get started, we have a quick video to give some highlights of the project.
American farmers have an amazing capability to produce. Nobody better in the world, but we have to be able to sell what we produce. I'm 4th generation and farm with 2 brothers. Our charge, I think, was to steward this land, steward the resources that were given to us, and give that 5th generation the same opportunity that Dad gave us. I started in 1983. My dad was farming, but he didn't have a big enough operation to bring us in. We took the risk and paid 18 to 20% interest on our first farm. Early 80s, coming out of the 70s, man, things were just rocking and rolling. I mean, you couldn't do anything wrong. We had a weather event like we're having this year, excessive rain, and so we struggled. By 1987, I was seriously considering quitting. There's a tremendous amount of pressure in a multi-generational family farm. We got underwater, so to speak. Our land was worth less than some of our loan values were. We were upgrading our equipment to try to build and grow, and we got caught.
I always tell people the story that my dad farmed better than my grandfather and we farmed better than our dad did, but it wasn't that they were doing a poor job. It was just they were using the tools they had in their tool. I think this we need to focus on is the next generation. And we need a reason to have our young people want to farm. And to do that, they need to be profitable. It's time to wake up and recognize the fact that agriculture is changing, technology is changing, the world's changing. We either have to change with it or we'll go away. My goal's always been through my farming career, if there's an opportunity to invest in something that will help grind more corn, give us better prices, I'm all in.
The government right now is incentivizing low carbon fuels. They help incentivize the ethanol industry to begin with.
I think the ethanol industry has saved the family farmer. With the ethanol industry needing a lower carbon intensity scores, I thought it was pretty important that we were part of that.
We've got 2 great ethanol plants within reach of us here. Why would you not want to enhance that and create jet fuel if that's what's going to happen? It's a no-brainer. We don't have enough people telling them how good it is, you know. None of that's getting out there.
We had about 3 miles of Summit Carbon pipeline go through our property. We negotiated, we had great communications with land agents. We had a few things that we wanted done a little differently than some people's, and they agreed to it. They're an ag-based company, so they understand what our soils mean to us and how they need to be taken care of. And I totally have respect for that.
We've got one shot at this to let them through here, so I told them that. I said, this is what I feel I'm comfortable with. And she said, you're not being unreasonable. So you got a place to work with there. I like that about you.
Just in the U.S., the aviation fuel is about 35 to 50 billion gallon a year market. Even if we get the 3 billion gallons by 2030, that takes a big chunk of the excess corn off the ending stocks. That will help our prices dramatically.
At 800 million bushels of corn, that's $200 million a year that goes back into farmers' pockets, goes back into those local economies.
To fire departments, to schools, to education, community events, 4th of July celebrations. I mean, it's endless. And that's all based off agriculture.
And if those local economies roll it 6-7 times, do the math, $1 billion impact to local economies and the whole state.
There's industries out there that want to build these plants, but they won't do it until the pipeline's done.
The basic backbone is agriculture. And every time you can enhance that and create new opportunities with that, it's a win-win situation.
The opportunity is huge, and we just got to figure out a way to get it done.
Okay, thank you for listening to that. Now we're going to move into the project impact. So enhancing the long-term profitability of ethanol and agriculture is the main purpose. So this project significantly impacts both the ethanol industry and the broader agricultural sector. By implementing carbon capture and storage, we're lowering the carbon intensity of ethanol, enabling it to compete in a growing low-carbon world. More than 53% of the corn in which Iowa grows goes to ethanol plants. With a lower carbon intensity, ethanol can be sold at a premium in the low-carbon fuel markets all across the country and the world. There are low-carbon mandates in some of these states and countries. There are also emerging opportunities for low-carbon fuels like sustainable aviation fuel. But let's first talk about ethanol's impact on our county and our state. The ethanol industry is the cornerstone of rural America's economy, supporting over 340,000 jobs and contributing more than $43 billion annually to the U.S. GDP and $4.5 billion to Iowa's GDP. So this project is crucial in sustaining these benefits and ensuring that ethanol remains a key driver of economic growth and job creation. I don't think any of us in this room want to see a world where ethanol is a less attractive fuel source or even goes away completely. And Iowa's farmers need to find a new way or a new home for over half of our corn crop. So we're here to help make sure that doesn't happen. And instead of ethanol losing market share over time, our project will make sure ethanol actually gains market share. So one of the most exciting opportunities is sustainable aviation fuel. And that can come from a lower carbon intensity score from ethanol. So SAF is a drop-in jet fuel. We are all familiar with the 10 to 15% blend of ethanol. But SAF is expected to be a 50% blend into jet fuel. The SAF market is poised to be 6 times larger than the current ethanol market. However, to tap into this market, the ethanol that our local plants make must meet certain low carbon standards, which can only be achieved through carbon capture and storage. As we see corn production increase and global demand decrease, assessing new markets like SAF is not just beneficial, it's necessary for the future of the ethanol industry. One thing to point out is that there is a SAF plant in the state of Georgia, just opened, I think, about 6 months to a year ago, but it's making SAF out of low-carbon sugarcane ethanol being imported from Brazil. So without CCS, ethanol producers in Iowa will simply not have a low enough carbon intensity score to qualify for this huge potential market. Investing in Iowa and the Midwest. So our commitment to Iowa and the Midwest is substantial, with $4.5 billion allocated for expenditures within the state of Iowa and $8.9 billion across the 5-state footprint. This investment translates into nearly 2,800 jobs, from direct construction jobs and operations roles to jobs generated through local businesses supporting the project. We're dedicated to using local contractors and suppliers whenever possible and ensuring that this project provides ongoing economic benefits to communities across Iowa and the Midwest. One of the most direct ways that our project will benefit local communities is through substantial property tax payments that we'll pay across counties involved. These taxes are crucial for funding local services and infrastructure. For example, here in Adams County, we're projected to pay roughly $800,000 every year. These contributions will help ensure that essential services are well funded, supporting the community's growth and development. Breaking down this a little further here for Adams County, it's important to understand where those funds would be going. So in Adams County, 395 of the 800,000 would go directly to funding local schools, 29,000 to community colleges, $20,000 to townships and cities, and the remaining 25%, or roughly 356,000, would go to the county general fund. This detailed allocation ensures that every dollar we contribute is put to good use, supporting education, local governance, and the essential public services. So now I'm going to hand it over to Kylie Lang.
Like you mentioned, I'm Kylie Lang. I'm the Iowa Pipeline Project Manager, and I'm going to go through a couple of the project details. The full project originates in East Iowa, heads up into South Dakota, where it eventually terminates in North Dakota at our sequestration sites. Segments of the line also stretch into Nebraska and Minnesota to connect to additional ethanol plants. The total project consists of capturing carbon at 57 ethanol plants across 22 different companies. The full project footprint crosses 38 Iowa counties, 23 being impacted by what is referred to as Phase 2. Phase 1, which consisted of 13 ethanol plants and is depicted in blue on the map, has received its order from the IUC to proceed with the 689-mile project. This project, what is referenced as Phase 2 and depicted in purple on the map, will add an additional 17 ethanol plants in Iowa and will consist of an additional 330 miles. Specific to Adams County, there will be 7.8 miles of 6-inch pipeline that will connect to the Poet Corning plant. It is important to note that although all of you received the same letter, the majority are just within what is called a corridor, rather than actually having proposed pipeline on your property. We'll have a team in the back ready to review your specific property and discuss further questions at the conclusion of the meeting. The pipeline will be constructed utilizing high-grade carbon steel pipe that will contain an epoxy coating and will be placed a minimum of 4 feet from the top of the pipe to the surface. The first step of construction is completing survey of the land, which will define the location the pipeline can be placed and how it will be installed. A test will also be completed on each property to determine the depth of topsoil. Once the route is determined and permitted, construction crews will clear the pipeline right-of-way, remove topsoil based on the results of the test, and place it separate from construction for no disturbance. They will then lay out strings of pipe, weld the pipe together, non-destructive test 100% of those welds, and put a coating on each of the welds. The trench will then be dug with a trencher, with an assumption of being approximately 1 foot wider than the pipe itself, so looking at about 18 inches of trench size in Adams County. The pipeline will be lowered The ground will then be compacted, then we'll come through with a ripper to decompact to ensure the ground isn't too compacted. The final step is replacing the topsoil. Once construction is completed, before CO2 is put in the pipeline, a hydro test is completed. This consists of filling the line in segments with water and pressurizing it to 125% of our maximum operating pressure of the system. The hydro test will be held for 8 hours as the final verification of successful construction. For the projected pipeline or project timeline, the IUC gave the final order on phase 1 this past June. We currently are going through the IUC county informational meetings for the expansion scope. The next step is working with landowners to begin the survey process, which is followed by acquiring voluntary easements. Voluntary easement conversations can begin following this informational meeting. We anticipate filing our permits for phase 2 around October of this year, which will then have hearings and a permit decision. Assuming a favorable permit decision, we are anticipating the project being operational in 2026. I'll now introduce J.D. Myers, who will give information on the landowner.
Thanks, Kylie. My name is J.D. Myers. I'm Ag Relationship Manager for Summit Carbon Solutions. We will talk about the landowner compensation. Did I lose it? Or is that it right there? Okay. All right, first meeting of the series here, so we're gonna figure it out. Compensation for landowners. So each landowner will have an individual land agent assigned to them. These are professional agents committed to developing and maintaining a positive and productive relationship with the landowner built on trust and transparency. It's a priority for us to negotiate easements with landowners that are agreeable to both parties and provide value for both parties. Easement rights are acquired with the land and are not impacted by future ownership. Compensation is based on fair market value of the land in the county. There are 3 parts to this compensation: permanent easement, temporary easement, and damages. As we mentioned earlier, we have land agents in the back of the room today. Following the meeting, we would like to have an opportunity to visit with the landowners individually, answer questions, and hopefully secure permission to start survey work. Further compensation for landowners: if we come to an agreement and sign an agreement on your property, and before we make a payment, you have 7 days to cancel the terms of the deal under Iowa code. As part of this agreement package, there will be forms that define the terms of the cancellation and how to notify us of the termination if you choose to do so. The termination must occur in writing, sent certified mail, and be within 7 business days of the date the agreement was signed. After the 7-day period has concluded, we will pay the landowners for the option that was agreed upon. Crop loss compensation. We will pay for crop losses to crops planted or would have been planted on the permanent and temporary easements. The total is 240% of the loss, so it equates to 100% the first year, 80% the second year, and 60% the third year. Compensation will be paid before the start of construction based on prevailing market prices and a 3-year average yield provided by the landowner or by county records at the ag agency. After those initial 3 years, if the landowner continues to incur a crop loss attributable to the construction activity on the easement area and provides data to support that, we will continue to compensate the landowner for losses for the life of the pipeline. Drainage tile. We must be at least 1 foot below drainage tile lines. We're putting our pipeline at least 4 foot deep, knowing that most of the tile line in Iowa is 3 foot or less. We will continue to work with landowners to gather as much information as possible on existing drain tile locations prior to construction and work together on a plan to restore drainage systems to their previous functions. We will employ a professional contractor to repair the damaged tile during the construction process. We're also willing to work with the landowners that want to perform their own repairs or work with contractors that the landowner prefers. We will warranty the style repair for the easement area for the lifetime of the pipeline. Next up, I'll introduce Dave Dong. He's the Senior Director of HSSE and will give the safety presentation.
on it for about a year and a half now. I'll start by saying that carbon capture and sequestration technology has been successfully implemented since the 1970s. Capturing CO2 has been done safely and successfully, has been done safely at 40 plus ethanol facilities. There's 5,300 miles of CO2 pipelines currently in operation in the U.S. There has been 0 fatalities associated with these operations. Some facts regarding CO2 and CO2 pipelines that I'd like to share with you. Pipeline transportation is the safest mode of transportation, safer than trucks, rail, and ships. And CO2 pipelines are the safest of all of those types of transportation. CO2 pipelines are regulated by PHMSA, the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, for the design, construction, and operation of the pipeline. And third, CO2 is less of a health and environmental risk than other products that are transported here in Iowa, such as natural gas and anhydrous ammonia, and is non-flammable. Lastly, we have committed to using high-quality materials and equipment with preference to Made in America, and employing proven technologies and best industry practices that go above and beyond regulatory requirements to ensure the safe operations of the project. Last slide. So just to reiterate our commitment, we will work with landowners, community leaders, and stakeholders with respect, honesty, and transparency. Safety is our core value. It is embedded in everything we do to protect our employees, our landowner partners, and the communities that we operate in. And we will comply with our agriculture impact mitigation plan to protect and restore lands where our pipeline crosses to their pre-construction limits. At this time, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I will now hand it back to the IUC.